leadership is more about taking responsibility than it is taking power, responsibility for others. I also think effective leadership isn't just about outcomes, but trying to bring about the flourishing of everyone.
That's Cal Zant, president of Betenbough Homes, and today's conversation is packed with deep insight about what real leadership looks like. We talk about building culture, leading through vulnerability, and why your team's flourishing matters more than just hitting metrics. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back to another episode of Leading Lubbock. Today I'm sitting down with Cal Zant. Cal, thank you for being here, man.
You bet. Excited to have a conversation about leadership.
Me
it's a fun
too.
topic.
Yeah, so want to introduce you real quick as the president of Betenbough Homes. And one of the things that I'm learning about you is that you are a student, lifelong student is what it sounds like, and teacher of all things leadership.
Yeah, I've after you've done this for a while, you make some mistakes. So I have some stuff to share with people. But I love learning from people, hearing about different leadership approaches and trying it out, see what works. I love talking about leadership. And definitely a practitioner.
This is going to be great.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And, so can't wait to dive in and get your perspective on some things. And also want to just say you are married. You got a couple girls. So tell us a little about your family.
Yeah. I've been married 20 years just last week or week before last.
Congrats, man.
Yeah. We made it.
That's awesome.
Me and my wife were friends for a long time before we ever started dating. So I would, man, that is awesome. I hope everybody has a relationship like that. I love just hanging out with her. Honestly, my kids are getting older. My oldest just turned 16 last month. So she is now driving, and my youngest is 14.
You're
growing
in a whole
up,
new
I used to
season.
call them little girls, and I'm not sure I can say that anymore. They still are to me, but they're young ladies.
Yeah. They're not going to like it if you call them a little girl, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Man, you're in a whole new world with the driving and I can't imagine. I've got a couple girls myself. And
honestly, my oldest, she's probably a better driver than I am. She's very responsible. The youngest, I might need to worry a little more about, but
hey, at least you got one. 50-50 is not bad.
They've both been driving side by sides and jet skis and stuff for a long time. So they'll be safe on the road.
They will. Yep. Well, that's great, man. Well, let's dive into some leadership topics. First off, would love to just know, what do you think of whenever you think of effective leadership? What does that mean to you?
So effective leadership can be a lot of things. I think at Betenbough, and I've kind of adopted a certain style, but there's lots of effective leaders out there. Leadership is one of those things that's simple but hard at the same time. I think the best definition I've ever heard comes from, I think it's Brene Brown. It was leaders are the ones who they identify potential in people and processes, and then they have the courage to develop that potential. And that's like, if one sentence encapsulates it, maybe that one's it. But how that plays out could vary wildly, For me, effective leadership usually begins with humility, with authenticity, even vulnerability. I've learned that over time. Originally, I thought it was about having all the right answers and, getting to call the shots and power. And I guess today I think about it a little different. Leadership is more about taking responsibility than it is taking power, responsibility for others. I also think effective leadership isn't just about outcomes, but trying to bring about the flourishing of everyone. I think it's Tim Keller or somebody. Some of this, I've read a lot about it. I don't remember who said it, so I'm not trying to steal anything, but I think effective leaders are trying. I fundamentally believe that it's not there's abundance out there, and it's not we need to scrap to get all our chips off the table. There's a way that we could win, the customer could win, business partners could win. Like there's enough to go around. And I believe the Lord can lead you to really creative solutions to that, where you don't have to take advantage of people, where there doesn't have to be a loser. And so effective leadership, I feel like, is someone rallying everyone and organizing everyone towards that, towards, the greatest good for the most people.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of the win-win, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to have a winner and you don't have to have a loser in every scenario.
Yeah.
And what I hear you talking about is an abundance mindset. Like there is this idea that there's enough to go around for everybody.
Yeah. I got that from Ron Betenbough, probably.
Really?
Even I started in IT and software, and I don't know why Ron brought me to some of the meetings and stuff that he did, but I would go with him. He'd be like negotiating land, and he just wouldn't want to go by himself. So I would tag along, and I would watch him, and he really believed there was a way we can both win. And so he would just try to understand the other side and what their constraints were, what they were really driving towards. And so many people are like hesitant to like show you their cards, but he was just trying to make it to where they both win. And it really there wasn't manipulation in it. I think Ron, man, we learned so much from Ron. He, he made a fortune and then lost it all. And I feel like that just changed his generosity and his view of everything. When Rick invited him to come back and help him start Betenbough Homes, Ron came and said, "Rick, I did this wrong the last time, and I don't want to do business that way again." And so they did a lot of things different that today I probably don't thank them enough for, but like it's shaped how we think about things. I really do. I fundamentally have this optimistic mindset that there's a way that, our trade partners can win, the customer wins, our employees win, everybody wins. Like we don't have to take advantage of one or the other, or there's a way all of this works together. And I believe the Lord wants that. It's like, I think that's shalom, the flourishing of everyone. It's not just peace. It's like the right fitting together, the collaboration, the community, all of it, the flourishing of everyone, bringing heaven to earth. Yeah.
I love that. I want to circle back around to what you do at Betenbough, just to like give relevance to like where we're talking leadership and how it's actually applied in your daily life. So tell us a little bit about your role there. It could be even, how many people are you leading, or what does the leadership look like even within the company, the way it's structured out. But yeah, give us a little bit of insights to what you do on a daily basis and how leadership shows up.
Yeah. So my daily role today is I'm president of Betenbough Homes, which is the most senior leader in that company. And I have a leadership team of 7 people. They don't all directly report to me. They report to either me or a vice president I have. Really, almost our whole company is like built around small teams, like anywhere from 3 to 7 people. It's kind of part of our philosophy of leadership to know your people. If it's much more than that, it's hard to really know the people you're leading really well, like what's going on in their life, and help them develop too. So that's our whole structure. The whole thing is like in small teams. I mean, every level. We have about probably 300 employees. I know it's Betenbough companies all together, so we have a few other companies. Betenbough Homes is the largest and oldest, but we have a few companies, and I think it's 450 or something total. Like a title company, a distribution company, a bunch of different companies. But the one I lead is the home building company, 33 years old. We're building about 2,000 homes a year in Lubbock. And then we expanded to Odessa in 2007, and then we expanded to Midland, and we expanded to Amarillo. So I'm responsible for all those places ultimately. And I've been part of the expansion. So trying to duplicate a culture somewhere you're not is about one of the most humbling experiences you'll ever have. I still have lots of scars from it. That was very hard. So lots of things I've just learned the hard way. And I also grew up at Betenbough. I was young. I hadn't even been married a year when I started there, and I started as a programmer. So I never really set out to be a leader. In fact, I never wanted this job. I never pursued it. I see it as a calling. I feel strongly the Lord told me that and had to convince me of that. Not arm wrestle me, but I do feel like he helped me understand that's who I was wired to be, and that he was inviting me on an adventure if I'd go with him. So I do feel like it's a calling. At the same time, I don't feel like I'm equipped to do the job. I took this role when I was 35, and man, talk about not 50% of the way there. Me and Rick had that conversation a lot. We were like, how ready does somebody need to be before you give them the role? And, I don't think anybody'd say 100%. Maybe somebody. I don't know. Maybe there's roles out there. Neurosurgeon. Maybe you should be 100% before you take that role.
We hope so.
But in the business world, I think most people would say 90%, maybe less. And we started talking about it, and eventually we got down. I remember him saying, what if that number starts with a 5? Or what if most of the learning happened on the job? And we have this, we call it a close engagement style. Those small teams, I'm not spread so thin that I can't check in with somebody. And so if they're lost or don't know what to do, it's not like I don't have time for them. They're my whole job. So, hey, let's talk through it. And I'm not going to tell you what you have to do, but I'm here to brainstorm. I want to give you enough support to where you don't feel like you're on an island. And Rick did that for me. He let me make decisions that were different than what he would do, which is so hard. And for him, I remember I started in software and I built lots of the internal systems and stuff that we used. And then eventually I promoted somebody else to do that, and they started making decisions that were different than I would do. And it was so hard for me to not go, don't do, oh no, don't, that's not, but I knew if I did that, it'd emasculate them. They'd quit. I know that guy well enough, he would have. And, he has really good ideas. What's the worst that can happen? And so Rick doing that, I just think back on that. If you built the whole thing and then you allowed somebody to start changing it in ways that you wouldn't have done that, how difficult, but also real empowerment, and real trust. And some of the things didn't work out, by the way. It wasn't, I had lots of great ideas. I had some good ideas and some awful ideas, and he let me try all of them. And when it turned out to be a mess, he also let me clean it up, and that's where I learned a lot of it. But I'll say when I agreed with God that I'd take this role, it was before Rick had ever talked to me about it, and I said, "Okay, Lord, if that's what you have, I'll allow you to prepare me for that, but I'm not going to tell anybody. You're going to have to tell somebody else if that." And he did. So when Rick offered it to me, it wasn't a surprise. I thought it was early, though. And I was talking to the Lord again, and I said, hey, this wasn't my idea. And I realized the gap between who I need to be in this role and who I am. That's your gap. That's not my gap. I didn't opt into this. So the difference between who I am today and who I need to be, you better show up or this is going to go south fast. And man, what a gift. I see that today. I've actually seen so many people. I saw it last week in a guy. He used to work for a company, and now we're talking about a new role for him. And he talked about, this season he's been in outside of our company, and he's been in a position where he didn't know everything, like, and the place of vulnerability but also dependence that put him in taught him a lot. And I just wonder if seasons like that is where God teaches us the most. Like when I've said before, I was blessed to be put in a position that drives me to my knees. The software stuff I was really good at, I would say in my flesh, world class at. So I can say what I'm good at. It's not like false humility. I didn't know what I was doing. And it also made it really easy to be collaborative. I remember that early on. Like, if you really don't know what you should do here, you're so open to what other people think,
Right.
And what
Versus
a gift that is.
Just the closed offness that I got it all.
Yeah.
I got all the answers.
Yeah. And it actually taught me a lot. One of the funniest things and most frustrating things is there were some parts of the role that maybe I was equipped for. And strategy has always been one of the things I love. I love games. I love strategy. I love all that. And I feel like as soon as I took the role, the Lord asked me to set that down. Like the one thing that would, right now would be a good time to use that. And you wired me that way. And it was funny. But I think I wouldn't have learned in that season the collaboration. And I feel like the Lord, more than getting to the right answers or the right decision, he loves seeing his kids work together. Like he loves it. Like loves it. And I believe there's a blessing on that comes that you can't fabricate, that one person in isolation could have never arrived at those results because of the blessing of that. And I feel like that's what he taught me in that season, and I value it so much now. Like, I used to think and this is really arrogant, I recognize that now, but if you would just leave me alone for a minute, let me go in a room, I'll come back with the best idea. I actually don't think that's possible for any human. Like, it's not, find the guy with the highest IQ or the guy that is the chair of the Harvard Business School. He'll never come up with the best idea by himself, ever. I think God actually prevents it. Like, how I see it now is like God's revelation is rarely a solo act. Like it's kind of like he might give me a couple pieces to this big puzzle, but he would never give me all the pieces because he wants me to have to work with other people and to appreciate the gifts they bring. And not just appreciate them, to seek them out because of it, to say, hey, you're a different part than I am, and scripture talks about the body, but I feel like in a business, we different personalities and gifts, and we can bring all this if it does take humility. So, I mean, it'll go back to the effective leadership. There's something in all of us that want to prove we can do it. And I think if you want to be an effective leader, you have to let that go. Like, you have to become less concerned with who came up with the idea and more concerned with, is everybody speaking up? Do I feel like anybody's holding back here, or are we all listening to each other? Do we have the right information? Are we avoiding talking about something? It's creating an environment where people can be honest with each other, and then us really doing that and working through it together. And, I don't want to make it sound like rainbows and unicorns, but that also involves really hard conversations at times. I promise I've had people I lead have harder conversations with me about my faults and my shortcomings and how I made them feel than happens in most businesses. And I've returned the favor for them. Like, Rick always made that okay, I'll say. I don't know if he had more hard conversations with me or me with him. And that was just always okay. And he wanted that. And he allowed me to ask hard questions or questions that weren't even in my territory. And I think I learned something about the kingdom of God through all that, even in the middle of a business, which is kind of a crazy thing to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things I love that you said. One of those was, as you're talking about people and the idea of us coming together, and good ideas are going to come from more than just yourself, right? The best ideas. I think that sometimes it can feel negative to surround ourselves with other people. Like to your point of like, just put me in a room by myself and I'll come up with it. It can maybe feel like it's going to backtrack us.
Yeah, or like it takes longer.
Stall it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And just this idea that we've all got something to contribute. And even if it's a terrible idea, there's probably some piece of it that like, but we can use that idea that you said, and the person who's not speaking up in the room, there is potential there and there is contribution to be had. So trying to call it out and bringing it out of everybody. And I just think that's what makes you such a great leader too, is that ability to to identify that there's more. I mean, there's more than just what is in here in your mind, but also there's more than it's probably in the room being said. Yeah. So like, how can we foster that?
And when you really know your people, like you talk to Kaylee here on the podcast, I can tell by little subtle ways how Kaylee turns her head, whether she has something to say or not. Ty, another guy I lead, like how he shifts in his chair. Like everybody, if you know them well enough, it's just, do you want to know what they're thinking? Or do you just want to move on to the next thing? And what we teach a lot of our leaders is that when somebody doesn't speak up, it's not, you should think of it as consensus. It's disagreement. And if you just think about it that way, you just say, hey, what are you thinking? Honestly, I feel like lots of times I'm just trying to watch who hasn't said something and hey, what are you thinking? And it's not that we do it by consensus or like the end result is some compromise between all the views. That's not how it works at all. Good leaders, you don't have to come up with the best idea, but you make sure all the ideas are heard and the best one wins. Who cares who came up with it? That's been really hard for me.
That was my next question is, how has that been? Is that easy to let go of, this idea that you've got as a leader have to have the answer, come up with the answer?
No, and I would, man, Betenbough, we have this whole language, like a 911 call. That's like a written correction. Like you have to turn it around right now. If this happens again, you're gone.
Okay.
I had one over this. That close to being let go for how I would go about this in meetings. And it was like, I wanted to prove I was right so bad, and it wasn't necessarily even prove I was right, but I wanted them to understand my point. Some of it might have been just winning the argument, but I would go about that like by just dismantling people. And it was abrasive, and you know what I wasn't doing? Trying to understand their perspective. And that's just that orphan spirit, trying to prove yourself. Like, until you can be comfortable enough to go, wait a minute, Kaylee is really smart. And if she sees it different than me, I would be wise before I move forward to understand how she sees it, because there might be something I'm missing. And when you really know people and you trust them and you love them, like all those things I just said about Kaylee are 100% true. Like that's not fabricated at all. She's very sharp, and I would be wise to stop and go, what are you thinking? Yeah. I'm going to say every time I've done that, I've learned something. It's changed how I thought about something. I really think 100% of the time. That's not true for everybody, but for Kaylee, it's been true about I really can't think of a time where that didn't pay off for me. And she helped me see something, but I wasn't always that way. Like I just wanted them to see it the way I did, or I don't know. It's a very self-centered view. Yeah, I think when you can get to the point, for me, here's the trick. I noticed that the longer I spent in my office or at my desk thinking about something, the more defensive I would get when somebody offered an improvement or feedback. And so I had to get in the habit where I don't let myself sit at my desk and think about anything. Like, either I get up and walk out and I start bouncing the ideas off people immediately, or I don't allow myself to think about it until I can brainstorm with a group. Like I'll intentionally distract myself, or as soon as I start thinking about that idea again, I can be like, nope.
Wow.
Because I can't be open-handed otherwise. But if I literally came up with this wild idea, like I don't know if it's a good idea or not, like I just birthed it 30 seconds ago, and I said, hey, Ruben, hey, this might be crazy, but hey, what do you think if we, you know how open I am to feedback in that moment?
Yeah. It's a brand new creation.
It's so malleable. Like if you say, well, did you think about? No, I haven't. And I can admit that. No, I haven't, because it's been 30 seconds. I have not. I mean, I found myself saying, I was brainstorming with somebody not long ago, and they said, have you thought about it? And I said, we have been talking about this longer than I've thought about it. So no, I haven't. But man, that was almost like self-defense. Now it's habit for me to, like, I do this constantly where I don't it's because I know my tendency, but I also know that won't lead to the best conclusions. So it's almost like I know God would only give me a few puzzle pieces, but I'm just going to search around in my desk in my office for the other ones, Well, I know they're not in here.
Right.
Somebody
else has them. And
honestly, I remember one moment I was walking out of my office. This is when it first started becoming a habit. I had to be really intentional about this for years, but I had just started thinking about something, and I didn't even realize until I was walking out the door. And I remember like thinking in my head, where are you going, Sparky? Like, where are you even walking? But I was just trying to find somebody, get this out of my head.
That's cool. Okay.
So that's one of my tricks. I don't know if everybody's that way. Some people probably could be more open-handed, and think about it a little longer. But I do tend to see people who like to really, they call flesh out or polish an idea. Like the longer you do that, I promise, the more defensive you'll get. It just seems to be universally true, maybe.
I've experienced that. And talking to my wife, she'd probably tell you, like, yes, he does that thing. Like he's created the whole plan, and now I make a suggestion, and you get defensive because you have polished it out. And I kind of had this idea of even just this abstract to concrete. And you use the word malleable, which I love, but having abstract thoughts and allowing people to help kind of shape the direction that it moves rather than having a building, that you took from abstract, and your mind now has form and it's got shape and it's got height and dimension. And then somebody tries to change that is a lot harder than to say, like, hey, where are we going to put the foundation? And then where are we going to start? How do we want to lay out the framework? And that is a great concept, because
you have to kind of become a verbal processor to do it. I wasn't naturally that way. Gina Roach kind of had to teach me that, another leader at Betenbough. But I think I take offense. So if I tried to think it through and didn't, somebody says, wouldn't this be better? It now is saying what I did was not enough, or could be better. And so it's easy to like take offense to that. I think there's pride in all of us. It's that striving. It's that orphan spirit, man. It's like the most destructive part of leadership. And we all struggle with it, so I can't say I'm past it, but I just feel like that holds us back as leaders so much, when the opposite of it is vulnerability, saying, I don't know, or you're right, or I need your help, or I'm sorry, or I'm struggling. Like all those things. That's the only way out from that I know of.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in leadership? Like maybe any instance along the way that really impacted how you lead today and who you are today?
Man, so much of life and leadership probably comes back to identity, but I'll say part of my story that I'm always really open with is I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, been to jail more times than I know. So really? The Lord has saved me from a lot. I'd only been sober a couple years before I started work at Betenbough. I was trying to be somebody different. If I was honest, I wasn't sure if I could be. Faith was new to me, real faith. I had an experience actually a couple blocks from here in the Lubbock County drunk tank with God that I didn't have any context for, that wrecked me. And so one of the questions on the job application at Betenbough when I applied was, have you ever been arrested for a felony? So in my first job interview, I got to explain that to Ron Betenbough and also say, hey, I'm trying to be somebody different and want to be. And he took a risk on me. But there was still a lot of that I was still processing myself. But one day I'll never forget that changed me as a person. And even has shaped even how I'm talking about leadership in our conversation already, probably in ways I don't even understand. But so there was a time, I feel like I've been at Betenbough through this crazy transition. So it went from a normal company to something way bigger than that. And I feel like I got in on the ground floor of it. Like it's really starting 2006, 2007 is like God brought me at this really pivotal moment. Not so that I could change anything, but maybe, I don't even know how I would come into this company now. Like it would be such a culture shock, but I've been part of the progression. It's been slow and I could understand it. But the thing that kicked it all off, I think the moment that this change started happening in our company was Rick and Holly had adopted 2 kids. I think they were 6 years old when they adopted them, and they had been through a lot of rough stuff. So they had lots of issues that honestly most of us can't even understand, and their son was going through a really hard time. And somebody I worked with went out to lunch one day. They had a Betenbough Homes logo shirt on, and they ran an errand, and the guy who owned the store saw the logo and he goes, "You work at Betenbough?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he said, "Let me tell you what their son did."
Oh man.
And he's like, "Oh man." And so when he went back to work, he knew Rick and Holly really well and knew, man, I got to tell them. And so he sat across the desk from him and said, "Hey, I just want to tell you what I just heard at lunch." And they were devastated. They were just learning about some of the things going on with their son. And they went home that night and thought, man, one, it's a mess and gosh, we don't know what to do. But they also didn't want anyone else to have to hear about it that way. And so the next day they came in and we had this thing, we call it a jump start, but it's not always like a Bible study, but it's like a morning. It might just be you're learning about other people, or it's like a time to share together. Mm-hmm. And they said they had something to share, and they shared the whole thing, the whole situation, and asked for prayers and said they didn't know what to do. And actually, I think he was actually in jail at that time. And they said the Lord had challenged him that he needs a savior and it's not you, and asked him to not go get him out. And I remember going, what in the world? What kind of faith would it take for me to hear that if that was my kid? Like, it'd be so, if you had the money and the Lord said, please don't go do that. Oh my gosh, it'd be way harder. I remember going, that's radical faith, but also I saw this brokenness in them. They said on the way in that morning, they just kept thinking one step after another that if you let people see this mess, they're all just going to walk out. How are they going to respect you? Or how are they going to expect that you can lead a business when you can't even manage your own family? Like, those are just lies from the enemy, man, trying to stop it. Because what I'll tell you is what happened in that room was supernatural. I believe walls came down in a way that I had never seen. Not only did lots of people gather around them and pray for them and encourage them, but I remember after that there was like a long line of people like waiting to talk to them, and I was at the very end of the line. And when I got to them, I said, hey, honestly, all the stuff you've talked about with your son, that's my story. I've been to jail more times than I know. And really, I've been kind of scared y'all would find that out and not want me here. And what they said is in that moment, they could see me, and they thought about all the contributions I was making, how much they thought of me, and they said they could see their son through the struggle on the other side of it. And it gave them a lot of hope. For me, it gave me freedom. I felt like I was fully seen and still loved. And that's what, man, you know, our spouses see us in our good times and our bad times. They know the best things about us and the worst moments of us. And they still choose to love us and believe in us and want the best for us, believe the best in us. And I experienced that through Rick and Holly in a way that I couldn't unsee. The Lord did the craziest things. By them doing that, I got to start walking alongside them and telling them who their son needed them to be in that season, how they could pray for him, how because I had a lot of struggles with and wisdom I'd learned the hard way, you know, that I could share. You want to know the unexpected part of that, though? So I believe in the kingdom of God, like there's no one-way streets. Like he's always doing 12 things at once, not one thing. And so it wasn't just he wanted Rick and Holly to have hope for their son. Like there were so many things. I think he wanted to show me that vulnerability and sharing the parts of your story you're not proud of, even those going on in the moment, is not weakness, it's strength. And it won't make people doubt you. It'll make people relate to you. That's an upside down principle, but it's true. But the other thing he did that I'm not, this is like poetic. So I really was still struggling with my parents. You know, it was really my rebellion and brokenness that led to my struggles, not things my parents did. But there were a few things they handled that made it harder on me. And so I still had a lot of scars and issues I needed to work through related to that. You know what the Lord did? He put me right next to Rick, and without my defenses up, I could see myself through the parents' eyes. And it changed my view forever. Like it softened my heart towards my parents in a way that nobody could have ever told me. Like I couldn't have learned it any other way. It was like I saw the destruction on the other side and how heavy it was for the parents. And I'd never seen or thought about that. And so not only did the Lord want to encourage them, he wanted to heal me. He wanted to redeem my relationship with my parents. And that went a long ways towards that. Really did. So, yeah, that's changed. The moment in the jail cell over here, that probably has had a bigger impact, but that moment with Rick and Holly and them really just letting people in. And what they would say, what I've heard them say, is really they had built those walls up.
Mm-hmm.
Not even intentionally. We just do that as leaders. We want people to like us, to respect us, to believe that, you know, what they joined into is meaningful and like we know what we're doing. We're headed somewhere. But it also like keeps us from being vulnerable, from sharing the parts that, you know, you hope they respect you after that, you know. Yeah. It's one of those upside down kingdom principles that is easy to talk about and hard to live out.
Yeah. So Holly I've talked to and she's been on as well.
Yeah.
And she has shared the other side of that story, you know, so it's really cool getting to hear your perspective. As you saw the change happen within the company and the direction of Betenbough from that point. It just seems like, man, what a pivotal moment in the course of the company, but also Holly and Rick's life and your life. And no telling who else was in that room that if we talked to him today would probably point back and say, hey, that moment right there caused this ripple effect that, you know, changed the trajectory.
Like supernatural breakthrough.
It really is. And I started writing down hopeful, and then you said the word hope. I mean, it just is like right at the exact same time. And then you talked about this hope and freedom. And it, man, what vulnerability really does. I mean, I have witnessed it time and time again on my, you know, personal walk with my wife. You know, that shows up a lot where you've got to, you know, you're exposed in so many different ways. And yet, if you were the one that takes the hard approach of laying your cards on the table and then asking for forgiveness, and then, I mean, just what it does for everybody in terms of hope and freedom that you find in yourself through it. And so the fact that you're taking even principles that I would apply in my marriage and even in my relationship with the Lord, and you're turning around and you're saying like, and this can happen in business.
What's funny is that's where I've learned them, and I've maybe had a harder time applying them in the other direction, if I'm honest. It is the craziest thing to learn some of this stuff in a business. But, I mean, that was 2007 maybe? Might have been 2006. It was a long time ago, early on. I started in Betenbough in 2006, so I hadn't been there very long, and I remember thinking, what? I could show you where I was sitting at that moment. Like, it just burned into my memory, and I remember thinking, what in the world is this?
Yeah.
This is not normal.
Yeah. And I would say probably not much has been normal
No,
ever since.
No. What an adventure. But yeah, we don't do anything normal there, I don't think.
Which makes Betenbough so unique.
Yeah.
You know, and I've gotten to know several people who help run the organization.
Yeah.
Or the business. Man, it is just, you know, I want to be a student of it as well, which you guys have opportunities, you know, through Kingdom at Work that you guys are not, it's not like you have the secret that you're holding on to. And like, we've got all the playbook of how you do this, and we're going to keep it to ourselves. It's like, and we invite you into it. So come sit at our table and let us teach you what we do here.
We've tried a lot of things, and a few of them worked. We've made lots of mistakes. And I mean, I know the names of people who've really been hurt at times when we didn't do something right. So that's not just a figure of speech. The scars I was talking about, you know, trying to duplicate your culture. I remember when we expanded to Odessa, I still remember the names of lots of people that would not say we were a blessing. So we learned lots of stuff the hard way. You know, when the whole Kingdom at Work thing really started when someone in our organization, I don't remember exactly who it was. It might have been John Jackson, but someone on the board felt like a calling that we're supposed to share our story and we made like a video or something. Like I think it was like 2008, and I had a real hard time with that when I first heard it. Like, who are we? Like, and I feel like in my quiet time, the Lord said, "Oh, you thought it was a video about what y'all have done, but it's supposed to be a video about what I've done there." And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, we should share that." And man, the Lord has done a lot of crazy things. I've seen some crazy things that most people wouldn't believe. I've got a lot of stories where I've seen the Lord show up in the middle of a business or in crazy ways. But we'll share about that kind of stuff. And that's what Kingdom at Work is. Like, we're not teaching like tips and tricks. This is how you should run your business. Like, I actually feel like there's no copy and paste in the kingdom of God. So God, think about how he created all the animals and like the creativity or all the different places on earth, like all the different environments and stuff. He didn't like copy and paste things. He's infinitely creative. And so if he wants to do something in your business, your people are different than the people that work in our business. And so he wants to do something that's never been done before. Something that's so personalized. You know, one of the things I love is traveling. I've never traveled before Betenbough, but we send people on like mission trips around the world to see different organizations we support and stuff, and let them take their families and stuff. I just got back. I was in Africa like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was awesome. I've gone many times, but what I love to see is how God pursues people in different cultures in very personalized way. So how the Lord would pursue someone in the bush in Africa is very different than how he would do it in Lubbock, Texas, but it's just as personal. Like, it's just as customized and personalized. It really makes God a lot bigger when you get to see that kind of stuff. But how you would be pursuing people in your organization is different than mine. What would work and not work? There was a guy one time that came and he was like, he brought his notebook and he's like, "I'm going to write it down. Like, I'm going to capture everything y'all do so that we can duplicate it." And I was like, "I don't think that'll work." It's a disaster, man.
Yeah. Because now you're forcing it to work.
That's what we learned in Odessa.
Right. So even within your company, copy and paste doesn't work because you're talking about different people and different.
Yeah, very hard. So what we did when we went to Odessa is we wanted to make it just like Lubbock. Okay, so we do jump starts on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you need to do Friday lunch. You need to do a Friday lunch, and then we need to organize it like this. And we just tried to white knuckle everything, and it wasn't working. And it took us a few years to go, okay, what is really core, and what is just the way we do it? And sorting through that is hard work. And as soon as we started defining those and saying, no, we would cease to be who we are if this wasn't there. This one, while we love it and it's working here, doesn't have to be there. As soon as we started doing that, within 6 months, like literally within 6 months, there was stuff that was happening in Odessa we wished would happen here.
Oh, wow.
It was like magic. And the heartache and turnover, and I mean, we just tried so hard. We thought, well, more effort. We'll just
white knuckle.
Grit your teeth, and there's lots of us there that we like to think we're pretty strong and we can grit our teeth and go through a lot of hard things. Me and Corey Lusk together, we've done a lot of hard things. Gina Roach, we've done a lot of hard things, but man, that wasn't going to lead to better results. It'll just be different. And there will be things that happen somewhere else that you wish would happen there, but that's not what the Lord has for you probably. So there's unique things that would happen here that not, So you've just got to learn what's core and what's not, and what are hills worth dying on, because not all of them are.
Man, I love the humility that you talk with. I mean, that you're acknowledging that much of where you are today personally, much of where Betenbough is as a business, is through mistakes made, that you guys have not been perfect and are not perfect even right now?
When I came in, we were talking, we do this monthly thing where we train leaders and talk about leadership topics, and some of that's like live discussion, some of it's teaching. You know where that idea came from? Most people in our organization don't know this.
Yeah.
In Odessa, we had a bad breakup with a general manager down there, and he left our first review on Glassdoor. I think you can go find this if you can sort it by oldest. I think it was the oldest one. You can probably find it right now. Just so you know, this isn't a preacher story.
Sure.
He said something to the effect, this was really hard for me to read, by the way, but great organization, but when you become a leader, good luck. There's no training. You're on your own.
Wow.
And I think he said a few other things that I'm just going to say had venom in them.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like I've gotten good at receiving feedback. You have, even if 90% of what they said is not true, the 10% might be what you need to hear.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you have to
There's something
own,
in it.
He was right. While I didn't want to admit it, and it's still hard for me to admit, that was 100% truth. And I did the first, we call them leader summits, the first one within a month or two of reading that. Because I was like, dang it, that's the truth. And I'm going to change that.
Yeah. Man. Well, it's probably one thing you look back now and say, where would we be without that thing? You know, without
there's so
the
many things.
summit
But it wasn't because we were really smart.
Right.
It was a disaster down there, man.
Yeah. It's the dumpster fires that really refine.
Disaster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, man, I feel like we keep talking all day. I love the topics and the directions we're heading, and I absolutely love. I'm gonna circle back up to a few things as we conclude, but I want to talk about the book because I asked you for a book recommendation, and probably was not the easiest to come up with a single book.
Yeah.
We talked about how much of a reader you are, but this book is called Called to Reign: Living and Loving from a Place of Rest. Can you tell us a little bit about why you said this book was one that stood out to you? What have you learned from it?
Honestly, I've learned for stuff like that, say, Lord, what book should I recommend?
Yeah.
So even in the most mundane things in the day, say, Lord, what would you, and I feel like that one was highlighted to me 4 or 5 times, and no other book was, so that's why I did it. But that's probably not a leadership book most people would go to, but how I heard about that, I was invited to help host like a retreat for church planners in Europe, first generation church planners. And it was like them and their family could come on this getaway because most of them never rest and never have vacation. And so this organization called Prepare International here in Lubbock, amazing organization, they invited a few of us from Betenbough, I think people on the ministry team or something at the time, to go over there, some of the senior leaders, to host and really run the retreat organizationally while they do some other stuff. And so they invited a keynote speaker. They don't like jam pack the whole thing, but they do want to give them rest. They give them picnics. They go on dates with their wife. They take care of their kids and stuff like that. But they also want to feed them spiritually too while they're there. And so when I got there, I met this guy and he introduced himself as Leif. And I was like, that's a weird name. And I think he was Dutch or okay, Norwegian or something. And I was like, okay, well, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, they invited me to speak. And I was like, okay. And it was this guy.
So
I know. I'd never heard of this guy before.
That's cool.
But he started talking about this. I guess it's a metaphor of 3 chairs. And there aren't a lot of sermons or lessons that I would say have changed me as a person. That one has. Lesson 5 in my life. Could I say, that 1 or 2 hours right there, what I learned, I'll never be the same. And that was.
Wow.
And you can read it in the book. I could give you a quick summary if you want.
Yeah, let's
teaser.
Teaser.
I'll try.
Yeah. Try to leave it open-ended if you can. And
And if you want the quick version, there's videos online. If you Google Leif Hetland 3 chairs, you'll probably find a few videos of him explaining it. The book does it really well. Not all books do that. That one does.
Okay.
But his analogy is everyone in the world is sitting in one of three chairs. And he calls the first one the kingdom of God, the second one kingdom of self, and then the third one is the lost, like the kingdom of Satan. So what is so powerful of his analogy is chair 1 and chair 2 are both saved Christians. Chair 3 is lost. And there's a lot of people in the world that are lost and don't know God, and they're in chair 3. But chair 1 and chair 2 are both believers, but their view is very different. And it's not you're one or the other. I'm both every day, and every day. But having the model to discern between the two, knowing that there's a second one, is super helpful. He says chair 1. I mean, so describing the differences, like chair 2 is you are striving and trying your hardest to please God. You are working for God. You're somebody who thinks about, I just want so badly to do God's will, and you like struggle with what is that, and you are devout, but it comes from a different place than chair 1. In chair 2, you are working to try to get from earth to heaven. Chair 1 is very different. It starts from a place of rest, realizing you already have all the admiration from God you could ever have. You already got an A+ on the test. You're not working for God, you're working from God. You're not trying to work yourself from earth to heaven. You're trying to bring heaven to earth. And you believe you have the power to do that. But it doesn't take effort, it takes abiding. And there's a peace. If you ever get really good at something, people describe it as like a flow state, like you can do it without even thinking about it. It's almost effortless, but you can do it at a really high level. Chair 1 feels that way to me. When I'm doing it, it feels like I'm not doing anything. There's like, but you have, I'll tell you, this podcast, it would be easy for me to get in chair 2 and try to prepare everything. Yeah. And you know what? This wouldn't have been as meaningful. So I've been praying, Lord, help me do this from a place of rest. You know all the parts of the stories that need to be told. So help me organize my thoughts and communicate it in a way that honors you and tells what you've done. Like, that's a chair 1, but it's real easy for me to go to chair 2 and to try, or comparison. Chair 2 is all about comparison, trying to, Leif is actually world famous and spoke all over the world. I'm kind of embarrassed. I'd never heard of the guy. It actually blindsided me a little bit hearing some of his stories, but he does a lot of work in countries that are very hostile to Christianity in the Muslim world, and has influence with people that you wouldn't believe, like the leaders of the Muslim communities. And I don't want to say the names of the countries because that's how hostile they are. Oh, wow. You know. Okay. He's been able to pray, and he's been invited to pray and do healings in mosques in those countries, because there is something about that chair 1 that just lowers defenses. And really, his book is giving you a million examples, real stories of when he was in chair 1 or chair 2. There's even like a little cheat sheet in the back of it that kind of says chair 1 feels like this. You know, the motivation is fear. It contrasts what the two feel like, what your motivations are, what you're looking for. And so I think he calls it chair 2 is the orphan spirit. You're just hoping that the Father comes by and that he's proud of you. Sorry, I used to not even get emotional. My wife had never seen me cry before I started working at Betenbough. Sometimes I cry now before I put my clothes on, but I get emotional talking about it because I can feel the Spirit stirring. And I guess I don't know what to do with that other than cry. But he says, chair one, you know the Father's with you. And you have everything you need. Even if it doesn't look like it in the moment, you know you have everything you need.
So you're not waiting on that flyby, that pat on the back.
No,
nope. It's a continual.
And beyond that, he's given you the same call as Jesus. You've taken on, you look like Jesus to him. Like there's nothing you could do. You don't have to work for it. And so you start doing stuff out of a response to that, not out of a discipline, a spiritual discipline. I used to have quiet time because it was a spiritual discipline, and I knew you were supposed to do it. But you know how faithful I was to it? Not very. Yeah. And I'd feel guilty, and I'll try harder, and I'll try harder. That's a chair two. Chair one says, I know the Father wants to help me, and he wants to talk to me about things. And you know what? I'd be wise to listen. So I want to spend time. It'd be best for me, not best for him, not best so I could please him or I could work harder or I could know his will, because I know really I need to abide if I'm going to do anything. And so just sitting with him becomes meaningful. Learned all that from that book.
Man, yeah, so you talked about work does not equal rest. It's not the same. I mean, there's difference between chair one of working, chair two of resting, chair one of disciplining, chair two of sitting, being, and
and sometimes they can look the same from the outside, but it's not the same. And you know your own heart, which one you're in right now. And so just asking that question, am I in chair one or chair two right now? It's just a powerful metaphor.
Yeah, and I might have reversed those when I said it, but I think we all know. You're right. You're right. We all know where we're at and what we're doing. Well, goodness, I can't wait. I'm gonna jump into this one too as soon as I can. We're gonna give it away to somebody as well, so hopefully somebody's life can be as touched as it was touching to you. But as we start to conclude, I like to finish with one. Question's my favorite. Okay. And it's if you can define leadership, and I think I know where this is going, but if you can define leadership in one sentence, what would that be?
Well, I mean, that Brene Brown one does it pretty good, but I still feel like there's a flourishing of everyone. That leadership, from my perspective, is incomplete. So maybe I'll combine hers. We'll say leaders are the ones who identify the potential in people and processes, and they have the courage to bring that out, but not just bring that out, but lead people to a place they wouldn't have gone on their own, to where everyone flourishes, where they become the person God created them to be. That's, I feel like so many leaders see, you're pushing people, you're trying to motivate people, you're trying to make them into something. Kingdom at Work, I've got to meet lots of very, very amazing leaders that have built big organizations, and one who has, a huge company that does many, like maybe $1 billion in revenue, in a really vulnerable moment said, Cal, if I'm honest, I've built my organization as extensions of my arms. That's what it is. And it's just so I could get more done, and I didn't care about the people, and I'm not even sure how to undo this. And I will say he has one. So, and I don't know how. I know the one who knows, and he wants you to ask, and he'll talk to you about all kinds of things. There's nothing off the table. I believe God will literally, he'll give you ideas you never could have come up with on your own if you'll just say, Lord, do you really care about this? And what would you do here? Like he'll respond to that. But I think building an organization is extension of your arms, which could be how a lot of leaders do this. That's not effective leadership. That's not, it won't last beyond you. It won't affect generations that live after you. But yeah, and man, how crazy is it that the Lord gives us a part to play in something like that? It is nuts. I feel like in the Bible, he picked always the least equipped. You know, like when he called Gideon, I think it was Gideon. He was hiding in the wine press or something like that, and he said, "No, you got the wrong guy." And he's like, "No, I don't." And he's like, "No, this is like the weakest tribe, and of the weakest tribe, I'm of the weakest clan, and of the weakest clan, I'm of the weakest family, and of the weakest family, I'm like the weakest one." And he's like, "Yeah, that's who we got." And I feel like it's a joke sometimes. I do feel like God picked me because of my weakness, not because of my strength. And he almost did it as a practical joke, like so that it'd be more clear he was doing something, not I was doing something. Yeah. So really, I'm just a programmer who, when I had the wheel, the story wasn't good, man.
Yeah.
Drug addict and alcoholic, and that hurt lots of people. Yeah. I think I always had the gift of leadership, and I just didn't use it well for a long time. But when we give God our yes, I mean, what he could do is endless. It's like you're this much, he can be the rest of it. Like we just can get it in our own way sometimes. And I feel like I'm in this process of surrender. Not there, man. I still take back the wheel some days, and my wife could tell you which days those are. But I do feel like the Lord showed us some crazy stuff, and it's still, I think it's the greatest adventure you could ever go on to say, Lord, would you help me in my leadership? Would you help me understand how you designed this to work? What should I do differently? Greatest adventure you could ever go on.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about this stripping away, right, of absolutely everything, and what hope to everybody listening to say like, well, but not me, right? I'm too far gone, and that may be their story, but mine is different. You know, mine's unique, mine's worse, mine's in just this level of idea maybe of no, you too, and that too, and what's coming potentially too.
You know, I know keep talking. I could talk about this forever, but I really feel I don't share this a lot, but the prayer that I prayed in that jail cell. So I grew up in a church that, man, it had broken people in it. Everywhere does. I just didn't see a lot of that, and so I couldn't relate. And it seemed like all of these people had their stuff together, and I didn't. And I knew the darkness in my own heart, and I knew I couldn't measure up. So, and God didn't want to have anything to do with you if you didn't want to measure up, if you couldn't measure up. So I ran from it, and for a long time. And I'd been to jail a bunch of times, and I was in jail again. I had wrecked my car and into a parked car, and the cops eventually found me, and I was in the Lubbock County drunk tank again, drunk. And I remember as I was sitting there, for the longest time, I thought like all that stuff was only affecting me. I remember thinking one time, if I keep living like this, I won't even live to be 21. And I was like, I don't care. So, I mean, I was hopeless, but it was in that moment where I started thinking about everybody else who was like in my wake, where they were doing really well until they met me. Some of them, I mean, were going to LCU to be youth pastors, and because of the drugs I introduced them to, they can hardly carry on a conversation today. And I started thinking about my parents and all the people that I drugged through. It's not just me. You don't do anything in isolation. And I'd never really thought about that before. And I remember praying for the first time, honestly still half drunk. But I remember thinking, and this is exactly what I prayed, Lord, I know I've gone too far to be forgiven for the long list of stuff that I've done, but I just want you to know that I'm sorry. That's where I started. And there's no too far. You know, the story of the prodigal son I relate to so much. I have one tattoo. Amazingly, with my background, you'd think I had lots of tattoos, but I bought drugs with it, so I didn't pay for many tattoos. Yeah. But in that story, the son's like rehearsing this speech. He's like, I'll go, get up and I'll go to my father and I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven. I've sinned against you. No longer worthy to call me your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he's rehearsing this speech as he goes home. You can hear it in scripture. And then when he gets there, his father runs to him. He sees him while he's still a long ways off, and he runs to him. And the son, as soon as he gets there, he starts the speech that he's been rehearsing. Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. He doesn't get the whole speech out. Like if you go look at it, he never gets out the whole speech. It's just half of it before the father interrupts him, not even talking to him, and saying to the servants, quick, go get the robe, get the ring on his finger, get sandals on his feet.
He didn't need to hear it.
He didn't hear a word he said. And I felt like in that jail cell, I didn't know any of that in the jail cell. What I felt was like he tackled me. Like it was a giant bear hug. I didn't know what to do with that. I'd never felt him like that, but also had never felt acceptance and love like that. And it blindsided me because I was like, I don't even know why I'm saying this. Like, you're not even listening to me. It's like the son, you know. He could care less if my theology was broken then, or he just needed me to turn around. And there's so many people that talk about it like coming back to God. Man, I just turned around. He was there the whole time. I was running from him, but as soon as I turned around, like he closed the gap. Yeah. And man, seriously, if he can do that for me, he could do that for anybody. I hope somebody listening to this, if there's somebody you think that's too far gone, they're not. I'll be honest, there's lots of people who had given up hope that I would ever amount to anything, or that the Lord could ever do something with me. And man, those are the people. He just gets a kick out of it. It's his MO to do something with those people. It doesn't surprise me now. I think back, like that moment in the jail cell, you know, the Lord was so proud of me in that moment. Still half drunk, still throw up on my mouth. Like I was on probation for possession of marijuana. You're not supposed to go to a bar, much less drive drunk, much less hit a parked car. I'm going to prison for a while here. And he couldn't have been more proud. Like in that moment, I already got an A. Like I didn't understand any of that, but I do today. And I think like I could see him in heaven, like pointing at me and telling the angels, man, you see that? I'm so proud of him, and I'm going to do big things with that guy. And they had to be like, you mean that guy over there? Like, not that guy. Not that. Lord, that guy's not sober right now. I don't. He has throw up on his mouth. I don't know if you noticed that, but it is not good for him. And he was like, yeah. That's who he likes to pick. It really is. He gets a kick out of it.
Yeah, he says that one right there is mine. Like,
yeah,
that one's mine. Yeah, it is. It's mind blowing. I think this will be an encouragement to a lot of people. I mean, it is. So. It is to me. It really is. And Cal, if I can say anything about you, there was one thing I wrote down and I circled it, and I keep going back to it. You are so prayerful, and I love that about you. That there's there's a response that you gave me about the book. You know, it really stood out to me. You said, you know, that I prayed about it, and this is the one that keeps coming to my mind. And just that, I thought, wow, you know, a book recommendation that came with prayer. You know, it wasn't just, I'm going to give this guy just a real quick answer, because I got books I can tell you, like, yeah, this would be the one, you know.
And I've got favorite books.
But I've never, you know, and just sit down and actually think, like, Lord, which one do you want me to share about?
Here's the truth. The Lord knows the hearts of every single person listening to these words right now.
Yeah.
And so should I rely on my wisdom for what they need?
Yeah.
Nobody needs Cal's wisdom. Cal's wisdom will lead nowhere.
Yeah.
But God wants to speak to him. So, Lord, what would you want to say? And that just kept getting highlighted. I mean, it's like I couldn't avoid thinking about it. And I read that book like 2 or 3 years ago. It's not like it was the last greatest book I've read.
Sure.
I've got 2 other books in my backpack. But that one, I believe the Lord said this one. And it wasn't hard. It was obvious. And well, I've learned to that's pretty cool to be part of. If you'll lean into stuff like that, just try it. Just try it.
Yeah.
The Lord will go, I'm going to show off here.
Yeah. I'm going to actually show up. Yeah. And man, thank you for your time today. Thank you for
I enjoyed the conversation.
The vulnerability that you expressed. I mean, I know sharing some of those things aren't always easy. And I know sometimes can pull on some heartstrings as you're talking through
I'm
them.
over here in tears. I got tears in my beard over here.
Sounds like a country song.
It does.
But man, I think there's just going to be so many things I want to listen back to this multiple times, because I think you just shed light on so many things that are personal, that we can't lead businesses, we can't lead families unless we've figured some of this stuff out. And really the figuring is surrender, right? Unless we're actually giving things over rather than trying to take the seat of I'm in control and I'm going to use this, whatever it is, an extension of me, but rather than doing that, laying ourselves down. So you just highlighted that all so well, and I appreciate it. And thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I love talking about all this stuff. It makes me light up, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I can tell. All right, man. Thanks.